Hi, Joni here. In today's video we'll talk about Slavoj Žižek and what the left gets wrong about the war in Ukraine. The real G is in the house. Slavoj Žižek has actually talked quite a lot about Ukraine during the last year. He recently gave an interview to the Kyiv Independent where he talked about the double standards of the left on Ukraine. He's basically putting the left back in its place on this subject. And it's great because if there's a public intellectual capable of shifting their opinion, it's him. Much of the left, just like the far right, has huge misconceptions and double standards on Ukraine. On this particular subject, the horseshoe theory holds at least partially. Žižek points out that a lot of people in the Western left view the war in Ukraine merely as a NATO proxy war. This view overlooks the fundamental issue that Ukraine is fighting for its survival. It also takes all agency away from Ukraine. Ukraine gets help from its allies, but so does Russia. And Ukraine does not obey Western commands. And Žižek doesn't talk about it, but for example in the Kursk offensive, the West was not even aware that Ukraine was going to launch an offensive before they did, which would never happen in a proxy war. Ukraine's struggle is a legitimate defense of sovereignty against colonial aggression, and Žižek highlights the failure of many leftists to recognize this. He also points out the irony in Slovenia, his own country, where many leftists support the Yugoslav partisans who resisted German occupation with extreme measures. Yet many of these same people want Ukraine to stop fighting. These partisans were way less likely to succeed than Ukraine is. But they still fought, and they are being praised by the leftists in Slovenia. That's a huge double standard. They are ignoring the parallels and complexities of Ukraine's struggle for sovereignty. And the same applies to a lot of European countries. The level of double standards of the far left in Germany and France is insane, for example. Mélenchon in France and Wagenknecht in Germany are good examples. Their hate for the US and the West in general blinds them, and makes them hate Ukraine and love Russia. Žižek criticizes this fascination that the Western left has with Russia. He suggests that this romanticization comes from some sort of historical view of Russia that is seen as more authentic and less materialist than the West. Žižek points out the irony in this view, and reminds the readers of Russia's imperialist actions and authoritarian modernization. He also challenges the notion that Russians have been untouched by Western decadence, labeling such views as naive and foolish. He argues that it's a misreading of the situation and of Russian society as a whole. I have personally lived in Russia, I can tell you that he is right. Most Russians love materialism as much as people in the West, and they are not any more authentic than we are. Žižek also addresses the constant threat coming from Russia, emphasizing that Ukraine does not really have any choice, as this is about survival. He points out that people who romanticize Russia tend to fail to see these threats. All of this is likely linked to the Western left's relation with the US and the West as a concept. The part of the left that doesn't side with Ukraine is the part of the left that also dislikes the US and NATO. And these people have no sympathy for Ukraine because it's backed by the West. This is just a summarized and shortened version of what Žižek said. But he's completely right, and he does a great job at pointing out misconceptions and double standards of the left on Ukraine. The far left and the far right in Europe tend to support Russia way too much, and it's good to address this issue. The far right is unlikely to listen to Žižek, but if a part of the far left does, it's already good. The Western left is too divided on Ukraine, and it shouldn't be. Anyone who claims to defend the weak or to side with those who face unfair attacks should side with Ukraine. Let's hope that as many people as possible on the Western left listen to Žižek on this. That was it for today's video. I hope that you liked it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.